Welcome back to our channel and thanks for watching. Kenya says it plans to boost trade ties with Moscow as the Russian foreign minister visits the country. Mr. Lavrov's trip came on the heels of an African tour recently by his Ukrainian counterpart, Dmytro Kuleba, with the warring sides each seeking to boost their support on the continent for their causes. With the conflict still raging in Ukraine, going to over 15 months after Russia's invasion, President William Ruto of Kenya reiterated Kenya's steadfast position on respect for territorial integrity of member states as outlined in the United Nations Charter. According to him, Kenya calls for a resolution of the conflict in a manner respectful to the two parties. He said in a statement issued by his office after Ruto met with Mr. Lavrov. Mr. Ruto said the trade between Nairobi and Moscow was still low despite the huge potentials. The two countries will be signing trade and also bilateral cooperation. In a recent interview conducted by the DW Television News, Mr. Ruto actually said this and stick to Kenya's position looking at the way they perceive the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Let's take a listen.
The African continent is becoming something of a sort of a diplomatic sort of battleground at the moment over attitudes to the great turbulence here in Europe at the moment, the Ukraine war. Now, Kenya has taken a very strong and very distinctive position on the Ukraine war, you know, right in the early days in the UN Security Council, speaking out very clearly against Russia's invasion. Can you explain Kenya's position? Why has it been speaking out so strongly?
Because we are great believers and signatories to the UN Charter, which speaks directly to a rules-based globe, you know, and ensuring that there is respect for countries and their boundaries. Any violation of the UN Charter by anybody in whatever manner is a threat to violation of the same elsewhere, everywhere in the world. Maybe it is Germany, it is today, it is Russia and Ukraine. You never know who it is tomorrow if we allow this to go on. So our position has been, this can be resolved. We must be a rules-based globe. We must respect the UN Charter. That's the position of Kenya, and not just the position of Kenya, that's the position of the UN and any country that subscribes to the UN Charter.
Yeah, there is talk of a kind of a sort of drift between the West and the global South on this issue of Ukraine, with many countries within the global South, particularly quite large ones, so very much on the fence, not wanting to take quite as clear a stand as Kenya has. What do you say to those countries? What's your message to them?
Our position as a country is that they say a threat to peace anywhere is a threat to peace everywhere. Our position is that this is not about the North versus the South. It's between what is right and what is wrong. There are those who genuinely believe this war should be sorted out, like us, because trying to apportion blame is not the way to go. There are those who are saying this war is as a result of sanctions. And to their credit, yes, the sanctions are having a devastating effect on commodity prices, grain prices, fertilizer prices. On the flip side, there are those who are saying this is as a result of the war. Again, it is true. So, is it the war or is it sanctions? And from where I sit, it doesn't matter whether it is the war or the sanctions. We just need to stop it. You know, let's find the mechanism to put it to an end so that we can stop the victims of this war increasing. There are victims, real people, who cannot access food, who have challenges, real countries like Kenya, who we've had challenges with accessing fertilizer. We have challenges with accessing grain. We've had to rethink about our agriculture. How do we do things differently so that we avoid dependency on the global supply chain of these commodities.
And China has been sort of becoming more vocal on the war recently. It's come out with what it calls a position paper on peace. When you look at what they're saying and how close they are to Vladimir Putin, and we just saw Xi Jinping in Moscow, do you think that they are a kind of a credible player in trying to bring the war to an end?
I think China should do more than it's currently doing, from where I sit, because I think China is a big player in the economic space. So I believe from even a strategic point of view, China should be pushing for the end of this war, because we've all come from a devastating effect of the COVID pandemic, and beyond the borders of China, China has huge interests in many parts of the world, including Africa, where they have deployed resources, they have supported the building of infrastructure, they've deployed their capital, and I don't think this war is helping them in any way to recoup or recover from the investments they have made globally. So my expectation, we saw, I think last week, there was a meeting between the president of China and the president of Russia. We weren't told exactly what the discussion was, except for, them saying they will work together. But I want to believe that at the center of the conversation was, where is this war going? Because it's not good for Russia. I don't think so. It's not good for China. It's good for nobody. So hopefully we should be able to see more of what China can do to leverage on its, friendship with the Kremlin and with Russia on how to bring this war to an end.
And yet we've just seen Vladimir Putin saying that he wants to move nuclear weapons into Belarus. When you hear something like that, what do you think?
It's really unfortunate because the rest of us were expecting a de-escalation. But it looks like a de-escalation is not happening anytime soon. And the threat of nuclear deployment of nuclear in this whole space puts many lives, many people, and maybe the globe at risk, of a full-blown war that nobody knows who will be the next victim. And it speaks to the urgency of all players. And that's why, even this morning, part of the conversation I was having with President Schumacher of this great republic of Germany was exactly on where is this war going and what is it that nations, signatories of the UN Charter, can do. Kenya in its own way, Germany in a different way, can contribute. So it's a source of concern for nations, for leaders across the globe, that this war is not de-escalating. In fact, if anything, it's escalating. And I don't think we should continue to take this lightly. I think there is more that needs to be done so that we can stem the hazardous and possibly the existential threat of humanity that this war could possibly pose.
Kenya exported over $55 million worth of products to Russia in 2022, while imports totaling over 266 million, according to the last Kenyan government figures. Mr. Ruto also pressed the case for Africa to be represented on the United Nations Security Council, where Russia is one of the 5 permanent member states. If you look at the tussling for influence within the region, Mr. Lavrov has visited Africa several times over the past years as global powers tussle for influence on the continent of Africa with its 1.3 billion people. Mr. Kuleba of Ukraine also recently called for the African nations to end their neutrality stance over the war in Ukraine and announced a push by Kiev to intensify its ties with the continent of Africa. According to his statement, "We are speaking with our African friends, trying to explain to them that neutrality is not the answer," Kuleba said at a press conference recently in Addis Ababa, home of the African Union. He also announced a statement the following day that Ukraine planned to open more embassies in Africa and stage a summit with the continent leaders. In February, 22 of the African Union 54 member states abstained or did not vote on a UN General Assembly resolution that called for Russian withdrawal from Ukraine. 2 of them were Eritrea and Mali, and voted against the resolution. Lavrov had visited both countries on previous trips to Africa earlier this year. Russia has ties with African countries that can be traced to the Cold War, when the Soviet Union cast itself as an anti-colonialist defender. A Russian-African summit, the second in the series, is to be held in St. Petersburg from July the 26th to the 29th of this year. We want to thank you for watching. Let us know what you think with regards to Kenyan stand, regards to the Russian-Ukrainian war, and if the African neutrality being challenged is the proper way to go. Keep the conversation going. Leave your comments as we look forward to meeting you in our next episode. If you are new to this channel, we encourage you to check some of our informative videos. We are looking forward to meeting you again, and have a good day. Bye-bye.